22 minutes now to 8 o'clock. The Reverend Charles Morris is in with us as we preach it this morning. And Reverend Morris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good. We want to look today at marriage and the redefinition of marriage. But what is marriage?
Well, many of the texts will tell you that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, and they live under the same roof and that kind of thing. I think that definition, to me, is a bit outdated. I think it was in 1981 when the Barbados government had a new law in terms of family law, in which they recognized even common law unions and that kind of thing. I think that was progressive. Right now, I believe in the Caribbean, as in many other things, the church now has to look at a new theology on these things. We've had revisionist sociologists, we've had revisionist historians in almost every discipline. I think now we need to have some revisionist theologians who will look at certain institutions in their cultural context. And to me, marriage is one of those.
Are you talking, sorry Cassandra, are you talking about rewriting the order of service for a marriage
No,
ceremony
I'm not talking about writing that. I'm talking about a theology of it, our understanding of what marriage is in the Caribbean. I've been saying this for some time. We have to understand that. Look, when we look at marriages as they develop over the years, you know, once upon a time there were certain people who could not get married. And marriage was reserved for people in the upper echelons of society. It was used for the protection of the dynasties, to ensure that not everybody becomes a king or queen. Those who went to war, the soldiers who went to war, when they came back, persons, especially females, saw this as, especially when they came back with their stories, they saw this as an opportunity. This is my man that did all these valorous deeds at war. So we want to marry. I want to marry him. Okay. And as the church, well, the church believes, maybe quite rightly so, that, you know, there should be the union of one man and one woman. Not there are some persons who say that to make a covenant between God and the human beings cannot make a covenant. They can only affirm a covenant. They can only affirm it. The covenant is already there, so you can only affirm it. My contention is that we have to view these things in a Caribbean context now.
So what are the things, having said that, and if you, as you say, we view it from within a Caribbean context, what are the things that you believe should be adjusted? One, that
you have you have to give greater credence to things like common law unions, and that is my peeve. These are very stable relationships. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, when does marriage begin? Now, some people say that it begins when you go...
When we move in?
Well, some people say when you go to the church and you get the ring, the priest blesses the ring, you sign the legal certificate. Right. I do not believe that. In fact, they go to the Bible as well and say that this person took this person as their wife. Now, in the Bible, it does not necessarily mean that that person was married. It means that these two people went and had a sexual relationship.
We're going to come back to that, but we're going to find out what Desiree thinks about the concept of marriage. Good morning, Desiree. Welcome to the program. You're on the air.
Good morning. Yes, I was asking, I think you just answered my question, actually. Where does marriage begin? Because when the Bible says that Solomon had 500 wives, my interpretation of that is that he had 500 virgins, and not necessarily that he took these 500 women and said, well, I take you for my wife. What does the Reverend have to say about this?
Okay, let me explain the whole thing about Solomon and the principles of war. In those days, in fact, let me say that I do not believe that Solomon had these 500 wives. You have to see it in the context of the culture of that day and the principles of war. Now, if you go to a country in those days and you defeat them, there are certain persons you have to take into consideration. The children and the women. Because in those days, men were the ones who went to war. Only men went to war. And so you had a responsibility. The victorious king had a responsibility towards these children and women. So what he would do, he would bring them into his harem. I don't believe that Solomon had all these wives. I mean, somebody got probably one man, 500, Lord.
Okay. My question is, while we wait to see if we're going to receive any further calls, you're welcome to, of course. 228-5562 or 228-5563 are the numbers you can reach us at. We're talking about revisiting the theological concept of marriage. I suppose the next step to this discussion is it necessary at all? It is the union is recognized in law without there being a marriage ceremony, if certain things de facto are in place. Do we still need it?
That is going to be the bone of contention.
So now, contend.
I don't think so. Look, now we're going to talk about law and sin. The church sees this, maybe, well, I don't know, some churches see it as a sin, living together. But let me tell you something. There was, don't forget the concept of this country, the whole thing about live with. Don't forget that. That has been, it has contributed to the development of Barbados society, no matter what we may think.
Do you think that the concept of marriage as it stands and as we recognize it now ignores the, as you call it, cultural contribution the live with has made?
As you say, and even in terms of common law unions, I mean the law, as I said, the law has recognized it. But what do we do? What do we say to people who are living in a common law relationship, or even a visiting relationship, but they want to become Christians?
We're going to find out.
I know this can be extended to other institutions as well, but...
Let's find out what Sophia thinks, or if she has a question. Sophia, you're live on the air. Good morning.
Yes, please. I'd like him to explain to me what happened with the marriage of Jacob, later known as Israel.
Okay, I didn't know.
His
What happened
wives,
with the marriage of
because
Jacob?
all along it was that he married 2 sisters, and then he took their handmaids to have children by them. And then later on you see references to Jacob's 4 wives. So I want to know what happened there.
Okay, that again is in the cultural context. In those days you couldn't have more than 1 wife. But the issue with Jacob is simply this, that Jacob saw this girl Rachel and he wanted her and he wanted to marry her. But in those days the younger sister could not get married before the older sister. So that is why he gave the father. And it was the father who made the decision. I want to note that. It was the father who made the decision. Women in those days had no rights, which has even caused me to revise some of my my theology about women as well. I discussed this with the bishop some time ago. But it has caused me to revise my thoughts on women. But women had no rights. So when Jacob wanted Rachel, the father said, no, you're going to get Leah. This is it. And if you want Rachel, you work 7 more years. You get her.
You can call and ask your questions to Reverend Charles Morris, 228-5562, 228-5563. Someone got a little impatient there. But you were continuing with your views on the things that should be changed or altered about the whole idea of marriage.
I just want to say, before I go any further, I am not opposed to marriage.
Right.
I'm saying that there are other institutions other than marriage that are just as important as marriage and are even more binding than marriage. The question we have to ask ourselves, you know, these days people get married for many reasons. And we have to ask ourselves 1 or 2 questions. Which would you prefer? A relationship in which a man and a woman live together out of sheer love. They're in love together, they do everything together, sheer love. Or a marriage situation where a man and a woman marry just for convenience.
So what is wrong with the situation where they marry, the sheer love is still there?
But that is good. When you marry and you have love, the sheer love is there, that is good. But you must admit we have situations where people just marry out of convenience for financial reasons. There's no love, there's nothing to it. It's just a matter of putting a ring and staying in the house together.
So what would you want? What would you want?
I want...
If you were the patriarch of the Anglican Church or whatever in Barbados, what would you want?
I would want a situation where we tend to recognize all unions, all. I said in a discussion, maybe flippantly, but when you sit there and think about it, I said in that discussion some time ago, marriage is one of the most unnatural institutions on earth. I said so. I said so because you have two people in a room for 9 months. They kick each other, do all kinds of things in there. One comes out a few seconds before the other one, and they totally can't get along in life. But then you take two people who are barely friends and you put them together, and you, oh, they must do this and do the next or something. That's a bit unnatural to me.
You mentioned that you would like, ideally, for all unions to be recognized. Having said that, what is your take on gay unions? Because in this society, that is another possibility.
I know you were going to get there. You know, I was hoping that you don't get there. The laws of Barbados do not recognize gay unions. I, therefore, cannot recognize them. Now, in terms of homosexuality, I have always said that right now it should be decriminalized. If the church continues to see it as a sin, it is okay. But I do not believe that we should be legislating on people's sexual behavior. If we do that, we have to legislate on all. We have to legislate on adultery. And if we do that, very few people will be outside walking about. Maybe, and I know who we want, but I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to talk about myself. I don't like talking about myself. But that is also, now we've seen that gay unions in North America, we've seen in England. It is something that we have to make a decision on. It's something the church will have to deal with.
What is the Bible's stance on it? What is the church's stance?
The Bible sees homosexuality as a sin. That's how the Bible sees it. Now, I know there are a number of people who are going to run to the Sodom and Gomorrah situation. The Sodom and Gomorrah situation has nothing at all to do with homosexuality. The cities were not destroyed because of the people the same sexes were having sex with one another. It was destroyed because of the way they were treating the strangers, because of the immorality in the society, not just because of I can't even say that the city was destroyed because of that. The point is that something happened in one city that affected the other. I think some scientists said it was some combustion between oil and sand, something like that, or salt, I think it was, something that effect. So I am saying that, you know, we, especially in the Anglican Church, we love everybody. We minister to everybody, and that should continue. When that issue becomes legal or not legal, when it becomes one in Barbados, then we have to deal with it as well.
I believe we have a caller holding. Do we? Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, please.
I will be brief. I don't want to take much time. But when the electricity passes, so you would explain to me. Now, in most marriages and most unions we have in Barbados and in the world as a whole, they always have problems because most men could compare the women, the present women they have, with the men that they had before. And the women could do likewise, compare the men with the man they had before too. Now I take it that God instituted virginity as a sign for marriage, because that's the time a woman lives in her innocence, and the man that took her virginity was actually her husband. In most references in the Bible to marriage, it was always with someone of their youth. There had to be a reason that God instituted virginity. I would like the pastor to explain to me what do you think is it? What do you think about virginity? Why was it instituted? God does everything pure. Marriage is supposed to be something pure.
But let's go back to the culture of that day. Even a woman's virginity did not belong to her. It did not belong to her, it belonged to the man. Look, a woman was owned by her father or her husband. And these are things we must understand. So if I wanted to have sex with a man's daughter, I go to him and I say, I want to have sex with your daughter. He can say to me, well, look, she's a virgin. Pay me some money. And then he will say, well, you know, she's also beautiful. That's another extra. The woman had no say in that. Even if I had to go and rape a woman now, I did not offend the woman. I offended her owner, which is a father or a husband. That is why in those days a man could not commit adultery.
So what about this day, which is where we're at right now? In today's situation, most societies, women don't have to have the man go to the father to ask for that. I mean, it's a tradition that is practiced, but if we're talking about culture, there are a lot of things that are just completely unacceptable in today's culture. So what is the place for what he was asking within today's society framework?
Virginity?
Virginity.
You really want to ask me to answer that, Cassandra?
He was asking.
That caused so much confusion in this place already. But I have said before, and I'm saying again, I have not seen anywhere in the Bible where a woman must be this pure before she's married.
Can I ask a question about what we really should be worried about? Larry King has been married 7 times to 8 women, or 8 times to 7 women. Elizabeth Taylor had 6 husbands and 6 husbands. Should that not be our primary concern? The perversion of a holy institution for legal status? Having so many marriages is almost a joke. Convenience, marriage, isn't that what we should be more worried about?
That's what we should be worried about, and that's what I'm saying. We have to look at a new theology of these institutions in the Caribbean. I mean, people get married. They get married 13 times and 14 times. I mean, come on. And it depends on the partner too. If I see you and I marry you, know you're wealthy, I love you, or claim I do, you're wealthy, then I look at Cassandra, who's now a relationship, she's wealthier than you, so therefore I think
free to move on.
I move on and I get married to you and move on to somebody. We keep moving on.
So then is it okay? Are you finished?
Which brings us to another issue. And all of this, we forget the whole thing about HIV as well. Because people that believe that you catch HIV/AIDS when you go there, you do this and do that. But I'm saying, suppose I am in a relationship with Katrina. We love each other, we've been faithful, we've been loyal, we've been everything. The relationship comes to an end. I go and get involved with somebody else. The same thing happens, the same faithfulness, the same loyalty, fidelity, everything. That comes to an end. We start another relationship. You know, in that process, none of us has been tested.
That's right.
None of us. So all of these things you have to take into consideration as well.
Katrina was mentioning the situation where people are getting married like 7, 8, 13 times, and that's one of the things we should really be concerned about. So then is it different if you are unmarried according to biblical terms, but moving from partner to partner, having the
same problem? Partners? It is the same problem. I'm saying that it is the same problem because in fact what I'm saying is that the same problems we have in marriages, we have outside.
And you're looking at not simply from a health perspective.
I'm looking from all perspectives.
Right. All right, seems as if we're out of time on this one, Rev. The Reverend Charles Morris, we were preaching it this morning, looking at marriage, and perhaps the discussion needs to continue in your head, among yourselves as well, about the theology, and also on our Facebook page, Morning Barbados on Facebook. You can continue to post your comments and engage in discussion on the whole question of whether or not we ought to look again at the theology of marriage.
Can I just say this before we
close?
Yes, you may. Reverend Morris, you may or may not know, I just celebrated a birthday in the best month of the year. Today is, of course, the first day of a new month, yes. But yes, I got a card. I got a card all the way from New York from Charmaine Ford. She's in, is it Bryn?
She's in the States.
Yeah, Brandmore? Yeah. She's over there and she sent a card saying happy birthday. I don't know her. So nice.
She's obviously watching us.
May 16th.
May 16th.
Thank you, Charmaine, for watching CBC.BB.
It's been a great morning as usual. Morning Barbados. All right. Travel safely, slow down, and arrive alive.
Be safe.